Ready for a little pub crawl? Well, sort of. Today's deep dive takes us right to the heart of those lively British pubs.
But instead of downing pints, we're dissecting a study about what happens when those pints disappear.
The pint. Talk about a sacred tradition. You're telling me researchers actually went into pubs and messed with that? Bold move.
Bold is an understatement. I mean, how do you even convince a pub owner to give up pints, even temporarily? Was there some kind of research discount involved?
Well, let's just say the pubs were compensated quite generously for their participation. Each one received £3,000, to be exact.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Money talks, right? But seriously, you can't just waltz into pubs and start changing their menus without a plan. How do they even approach this as a legitimate experiment?
They use what's called an ABA reversal trial. Picture this.
Okay, I'm picturing it. Hit me with the details.
They track beer sales at these pubs for 4 weeks. That's our A, the baseline. Then for the next 4 weeks, this would be no more pints.
Wait, hold on. No pints for a whole month. What were people supposed to order, like shot glasses of beer?
Not quite. Half pints were still on the menu, and two-thirds pints if the pub offered them. But that iconic pint, gone.
Okay, you've got my attention. So what happened? Did everyone just double down on the half pints? Did they start chugging down water, spill the tea?
This is where it gets interesting. Removing the pint actually caused beer sales to drop.
No way. Seriously, people actually drank less just because the pint wasn't an option. By how much we're talking here?
A significant amount, a 9.6% decrease.
Yeah.
It seems that taking away the biggest size option led people to shift down to the next smaller size, not necessarily to drink more to make up for it.
Wow. So you're telling me our brains kind of go, okay, time for a drink, and don't necessarily adjust for the actual volume we're getting?
I mean, I know I've fallen for that with those giant tubs of popcorn at the movies. You think you're getting a deal, but really, you're just tricking yourself into eating more.
Exactly. And keep in mind, this wasn't some controlled lab setting. We're talking 13 real pubs across England with their usual clientele, the lot.
Okay, so we're talking the real deal here. But they didn't just cherry-pick pubs that already had smaller sizes on the menu, right?
You know it. Some of the pubs didn't even typically offer two-thirds pints. The researchers had them introduce that size specifically for the study.
Wow, talk about commitment.
Yeah.
So less beer being sold, that's got to be music to the ears of anyone concerned about public health, right?
Yeah. But then again, pubs are businesses too, so the real question is, did this pint-size intervention actually make a difference to their bottom line?
Did the pubs end up having to drown their sorrows, or were they toasting to unexpected outcomes? Find out what happened to those profits after the break. All right, so the pubs bravely bid farewell to their beloved pints. But did they come out on top? What happened to their profits?
Well, they did see a dip, yeah.
Ouch, I was afraid you might say that.
Yeah, about 5% of their daily revenue, actually.
Okay, 5%, that's not insignificant.
No, not at all. And here's a curveball. While beer sales took a dip, wine sales actually went up a tad.
Get out. So maybe some folks just weren't willing to give up their evening drink, pint or no pint, and figured, hey, why not try something new? Still, though, 5% less revenue, that's got to sting a little, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's not as easy as saying, let's shrink the sizes, everyone makes healthier choices, and everyone's happy. It's a whole lot more nuanced than that, you know? You've got people's behavior in the mix. Maybe they're not even realizing they're drinking less, or maybe they're switching things up, or yeah, maybe they're just drinking less overall. And then you've got the pubs trying to, well, stay afloat while maybe, possibly, accidentally promoting healthier habits. It's a real balancing act, you see.
It's like you stumbled into those pubs with a research study and walked right out with a real-world economics problem.
It's true. And this whole thing, this whole pint predicament, it really gets you thinking about this concept called choice architecture. It's fascinating, really.
Okay, choice architecture, hit me with it.
So have you ever noticed how, like, at the grocery store, they put all the tempting candy and snacks right there by the checkout?
Oh yeah, it's dangerous.
Exactly. So that, my friend, that's choice architecture in action. They're subtly nudging you, encouraging you to make a certain choice just by putting it right there in your line of sight, in your path.
It's manipulation.
Well, sort of. Think about it. Even when you go to grab a coffee and they ask, do you want to make that a large for just 50 cents more? They're not twisting your arm, but they're presenting the larger size as the more appealing option.
Okay, you know what? Now that you mention it, I do buy way more candy at that checkout line than I ever intend to.
You see? Choice architecture. It's everywhere. And in a way, you could argue this pint glass, it's like the pub's own little nudge, part of their, shall we say, business model.
It really makes you wonder what other tricks or should I say choice architecture strategies, are lurking out there in other industries?
Oh, I'm sure there are plenty. Subscription services, for one. Ever get that feeling when you sign up for one? It's a breeze. But then when you try to cancel, absolute nightmare.
Yep.
That's our friend choice architecture at work again.
It's like everyone's in on this, subtly trying to influence our decisions, for better or worse. It's a little unsettling when you really think about it. It makes you wonder how much of what we choose is really our own decision.
It's like we're all just on autopilot sometimes, you know? Just going with the flow, taking the easiest path. The good news is once you start to recognize those patterns, those little nudges here and there, that's when you can start making more conscious choices.
So it's all about being more aware of the environment, of how choices are presented, and not just accepting whatever's put in front of us as the default.
Absolutely. And this whole pint study, it really highlights this bigger idea of how we can create environments that nudge us towards healthier, more positive choices. It's pretty powerful stuff.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good point. It's not about taking away our choices entirely. It's more about understanding how those choices are presented and how we can maybe, I don't know, present them differently to lead to better outcomes, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's about our health, our finances, or even just, not walking out of the store with a basket full of impulse buys.
Exactly. Think about it. What if we could use this choice architecture idea for good? Imagine if we could design cities that encouraged more walking or biking, or workplaces that promoted healthier eating habits, or even online platforms that made it easier to disconnect and focus on, well, real life.
It's almost like we could give people a gentle nudge in a better direction, you know, help them live healthier, happier, maybe even just a little less influenced life.
That's the goal, right? Empowering people to make choices that really align with what they value, with their own goals, even when those choices aren't the easiest or the most obvious ones.
I like that. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the surprisingly complex world of pints and persuasion, what's the one thing you hope our listeners will take away from all of this?
That's a great question. I'd say the next time you're at the pub, or browsing the grocery store aisles, or even just scrolling through your phone, take a moment to really think about the choices in front of you. Ask yourself, is this really what I want? You might be surprised at how much more in control of your own decisions you'll feel. And hey, you might even discover a new appreciation for the humble half pint.
I think I might just do that. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of behavioral economics. And remember, those choices, those nudges, they're everywhere. Stay curious, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.